Charlie 5, Yale's on.
Charlie 5, we're going to be inbound with a 20-year-old female from a local university. Apparently the patient was involved in a drinking game.
An all too familiar scene. One that occurs in every corner of America every single weekend. Emergency room people working to save the life of a young person who simply drank too much alcohol.
We get about 6 patients a day who are severely intoxicated by alcohol, and many others who have some degree of alcohol intoxication. Last night, at least 9 or 10 of the patients I took care of would not have been here had it not been for alcohol.
Hello? What is your name? Hello?
Eventually, the doctors learned that their patient's name was Katie, a 20-year-old student from a local college. But it didn't have to be Katie. It could have been any one of millions.
I guess I just got ahead of myself.
I'd be passed out on the floor.
I passed out in the bathroom at school.
One time, I just fell down the stairs.
I just kept on drinking and drinking.
I had no idea what would happen afterwards.
My friends didn't know where I was.
My head was like cracked open, and it was like almost all alcohol.
I just didn't really know my limit when to stop.
How much did you drink?
More than a half bottle of tequila, enough to make Katie dangerously ill, enough to cause alcohol poisoning, enough even to kill her. But she was lucky to be around people who knew enough to call for help. Not everyone is so lucky. At the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, a freshman lapsed into a coma after chugging beer, scotch, and rum at a fraternity party. 57 hours later, he died in his mother's arms. In Virginia, a 21-year-old senior drank a fifth of liquor and went back to her apartment to sleep it off. Sometime during the night, she woke up and fell down a flight of stairs head first. She died the next morning. In Connecticut, an 18-year-old honors student passed out and choked to death on his own vomit after his friends left him alone in a car to sleep it off. No one knows exactly how much he drank that night. The saddest part of all this? That each of these tragedies was avoidable. If only he didn't think booze was the key to social success. If only she knew when to stop. If only someone knew to call an ambulance. If only they'd known the facts about binge drinking. Booze, from the looks of it, makes people happy. They talk louder, laugh harder, feel sexier. But that initial stimulation is a trick. Alcohol is actually a depressant. And after a drink or two, it will begin to depress each body function. Breathing, heart rate, reaction time, mood. Beer, wine, hard liquor. Doesn't matter. Each has alcohol and each will launch the same type of assault on your body's vital functions. What happens when you drink? The booze is absorbed directly into your bloodstream and carried to every organ in your body. Your liver then goes to work filtering the alcohol out of your blood and eliminating it from your body. No liver can filter and process more than a half an ounce of alcohol in an hour. Alcohol that isn't processed builds up in the bloodstream. And while the alcohol is infiltrating your body, it's tampering with the critical nerve cells in your brain.
The brain is an extremely fine-tuned organ, and it's such a complex organ that even small changes in how everything is working together result in major variations in the outcome. For instance, just as an example, in doing this, taking my hand and raising it to my face, or taking my hand and making it into a finger, pointing to my face, I've just moved about 80 muscles. I've relaxed some muscles, I've contracted some muscles, I've changed the angle of several joints, and I've done all that automatically without having to think about it, because that's the way my brain and your brain work. If you fuzz things up a little bit with intoxicants such as alcohol, those things don't happen automatically anymore, and so this kind of movement becomes very uncoordinated compared to what it should be. That's how alcohol works.
Well, I can handle it. You've heard more than one person say that. It's true that alcohol works on everyone differently. A smaller person will feel the effects of alcohol sooner than a larger person. A woman sooner than a man. Stress lowers resistance. Medication does too. An empty stomach will speed up the effects of alcohol. So how do you know what it means to handle it? It's all determined by blood alcohol concentration, or BAC. That's the amount of alcohol in your body at any one time compared with the total amount of blood in your body. Since the amount of blood you have in your body is largely determined by your size, your weight is one of the main factors in determining your BAC. A 120-pound woman who drinks 2 beers in an hour will have a BAC of 0.06. A 180-pound man who drinks the same amount will have a BAC of 0.04. But whatever your size and weight, the more you drink, the greater your BAC, and the more potential damage to your bodily systems.
As soon as you get to the 0.04 level, your driving already becomes impaired. Going to 0.04 doubles your risk of being in a fatal accident. Going to 0.08 quadruples it.
A 180-pound man who has 5 drinks in an hour will have a BAC of 0.10. A 120-pound woman will reach 0.10 in 4 drinks. In every state, they'll be considered legally drunk because it's at this level that judgment, speech, and reaction times are severely affected, and trouble often begins.
I've been working in the infirmary when kids have been brought in who have been found sleeping in the middle of the road.
You get dumb. I mean, like I said, you lose control and you're just doing stupid things.
You don't know what's going on and your thinking's impaired.
I find my words being slurred.
People who are mean drunks, you know, nobody wants to be around them.
Get arrested, stuff that I would never do normally.
You love everybody when you're drunk.
You never know what's going to set them off.
Or you could hate everyone when you're drunk.
And they could be a totally normal, timid person.
My 2 front teeth are fake because I went and started a fight.
You start to repeat things.
You just want to fight with everyone. And you could say things that you regret later.
And you might pass out or black out.
My 21st birthday, I blacked out. I pissed on the bar.
Something else alcohol can impair? Your common sense.
Examples of impaired judgment are, for instance, getting into a car with a drunk driver. Sober people are not passengers in cars driven by drunk drivers, as a rule. Usually, when there is a carload of people who have been injured in a drunk driving accident, all the people involved have been drinking. Those same people, had they been sober, would have chosen not to get into that car, so it altered their judgment, and that's all it took in those cases.
Katie wound up in the emergency room because her BAC was more than 0.20. Her brain was barely functioning. She could hardly walk, talk, or think. She was vomiting violently, her emotions running wild. She was in danger of acute alcohol intoxication, a rapid, severe, intense poisoning of her body that occurs when the liver can't process and eliminate the alcohol fast enough. It's caused by putting too much alcohol into the body in too short a time.
In other words, you could die. Everyone talks about blood alcohol content and blood alcohol level, and I always equate it to like a sink. If you turn on the water and you don't turn it on real fast, the water runs into the sink and out the drain. But what happens when you drink a lot in a short period of time is you get so much alcohol in your system that it's like turning the water on really fast in a sink, and the water builds up because it can't drain out as fast as you're putting it in.
I couldn't walk straight. I was in the bushes. A couple people tried to help me back to my room.
Chris drank himself into a state of acute alcohol intoxication when he drank more than 24 ounces of vodka in less than 20 minutes.
I went walking away and I fell down a small flight of stairs. I don't remember the ambulance at all, and they didn't need to pump my stomach. I was throwing everything up. I got to the hospital and they immediately thought the worst and thought I was seriously alcohol poisoned, which I was, but more serious than I was. And now my life was in danger. And they were watching my blood alcohol level, which was extremely high. And if it had gone any higher, I would have had to been flown by a chopper to have kidney dialysis to clean out the liver. But luckily it didn't go up any higher than it did. I remember just sitting in my room and dreading my parents coming, wanting to run away, and I couldn't believe what was happening, and I don't know, it was the worst experience of my life.
Chris is lucky he's not dead. Others aren't so lucky. Binge drinking is an irrational killer.
Binge drinking is drinking a lot in a short period of time, and the intent is to get drunk.
Drinking to get drunk, extremely drunk.
Having more than you can handle.
Getting stupid, that's what you get. You're completely stupid, you don't think about things.
The amount of alcohol that it takes to seriously alter your judgment and your coordination.
One of the big misconceptions is people think everybody does it. And I realize that everybody doesn't do it.
Although binge drinking is a growing problem, not everyone does it.
Every Friday we call 100 students and we ask them 4 questions. What percentage of students do you think drank last night? Because Thursday's a big party night. And what percentage of those students do you think got drunk? And then we say, did you drink last night and did you get drunk? And the perception is always higher than the reality.
One of the other mistakes is thinking that a regular pattern of binge drinking is the norm. And obviously, if you hang out with, if you associate with a lot of other people who all do that, it seems normal to you to do that. And yet, it's clearly been shown that the more you binge, the lower your grades are, the more fights you get into, the more you damage property, the more likely you are to drop out of school, to get pregnant, to get somebody else pregnant, to catch a venereal disease, to have a car crash.
I did have a friend who went out every single night and got drunk, and she would always end up getting sick and everything, and we'd have to take care of her, and it was just, I mean, we tried to tell her, you know, stop drinking so much. I mean, it's, your grades are going down, and she was having problems with her family and everything, so it wasn't a good scene.
I'm graduated now, barely, but I'm still gonna be paying for those years of drinking because I don't have the best grades, and I'm gonna have to really struggle to dig myself out of the hole that drinking pretty much dug for me.
All these bad things happen in direct relationship to how much you drink. And yet, because you may associate with a lot of other people who also drink a lot, you come to accept that as the norm. And that's clearly not a norm. If it's a norm, it's clearly not a healthy norm. And you have to look at the consequences of what you're doing.
Binge drinking poses yet another threat, one that could reveal itself years after this weekend's party.
No one just one day when they're 30 says, I want to become an alcoholic. Like, it starts somewhere, and it's going to start when you're young.
Most people who drink don't become alcoholics, but there still are risks associated with heavy drinking on a regular basis.
Alcohol affects every organ in the body. The brain is affected by alcohol in the long term, damage to specific parts of the brain that cause loss of memory, loss of coordination. They can induce very severe dementia. It affects your heart. There's a condition known as alcoholic cardiomyopathy, in which the heart muscle becomes weakened over time. And as it gets weak, it starts to sag. And the whole heart starts stretching out, and it's no longer able to pump blood effectively. And that means that when you want to do the normal everyday activities that you do, getting dressed, eating, walking, running, climbing stairs, you can't do them without fighting for breath.
In the liver, long-time heavy drinking kills cells and scars the vital organ, leading eventually to the life-threatening condition known as cirrhosis.
The final cause of demise of a person in liver failure is generally a combination of severe bleeding from the digestive system, from the mouth, the ears, just about everywhere, combined with coma that's caused by all these toxins that have built up in the bloodstream. Dying of liver failure is not a pretty sight.
Dangerous stuff, scary stuff. But many kids still drink too much. Why? Peer pressure is obviously one answer. Another is very calculated, very expensive, and very persuasive advertising and marketing efforts. T-shirts, hats, pins, and promotions by bars and beverage companies have successfully portrayed the liberal use of alcoholic beverages as a normal part of a healthy lifestyle. Sports and alcohol are frequently linked, a strange combination when you really think about it.
The methods to encourage drinking have become much more sophisticated than they ever were in the past. It's a huge industry. Alcohol sales to minors, people who cannot legally drink, total over $500 million a year. The alcohol industry knows this. They promote it. They want it to happen because they make a lot of money off of it.
There's another so-called sport involved with drinking. This one, deadly. It's known as the drinking game.
Anything basically that helps you get a lot of alcohol in your system in a short period of time is incredibly high risk.
The average person, if allowed to drink at their own pace, may drink themselves to a state of drunkenness, but not to a state of alcoholic stupor and coma. And when that happens, it's usually because they've been in some sort of ritual or game that has forced them to drink a very large quantity of alcohol in a very short period of time before that alcohol gets into their bloodstream and into their brain and causes them to pass out. Two things make me upset about alcohol abuse. And the first is the obvious, the tragedy, the dead student from the car crash, the rape, the murder victim, the fell off a cliff or fell off a balcony. But the other thing that saddens me is to think that there's a whole generation of what should be very bright young people who have lots to learn, lots of wonderful, enjoyable things to learn, and a lot to offer, and a lot of responsibility for the future, to think that they've been convinced that the way they should spend their weekends is to get drunk is very saddening when you think of what they could be doing instead.
What could they be doing instead? If you were to ask them, they'd say nothing, that this is the only way to have fun. They're wrong.
They're not having fun, they're just drunk.
They confuse having fun with being happy. And when you do that, you have to have a lot of fun to compensate for not being happy.
The basic mistake is in assuming that you have to get drunk to have fun. The second is slipping into a pattern of using alcohol every weekend as a means of recreation.
It would be Saturday night, and I drank hard Thursday and Friday night. So Saturday night, it was like, I didn't want to drink, but I didn't know what else to do.
I felt if I want to fit in, maybe I need to have a beer in my hand at all times too.
It was like a job. It was like, gotta get drunk again.
Now, I don't care what other people think of me.
I don't think it's cool. I think it's sick.
I hang out with a group of people who know that you don't need to drink every night to have a good time.
I've found ways to be, popular and talk to people without being drunk.
You realize that you are wasting a lot of time, and it is getting boring.
You don't need drinking to have a social life. You can be sociable without alcohol.
Even if you play it smart and never abuse alcohol, chances are someday you'll have to deal with someone who is drunk or suffering from alcohol poisoning. It's critical that you know what to do. If you're with someone who's drunk and that person passes out or shows other signs of alcohol poisoning, remember this. Call or get someone else to call for medical assistance right away. Place the person on their side. Monitor their breathing and pulse. Don't let them sleep it off, and don't leave them alone. It could be a matter of life or death.
If you can't wake them up and there are changes in skin color or temperature, then you need to call 911, because the person can seem to be just sleeping it off. Depending on what they've been drinking, their blood alcohol content can continue to rise, and then they can go into a state of acute alcohol intoxication.
That's a medical emergency. That person's actually in danger of dying if you don't respond properly. And the proper response is to get them to a medical environment, such as a hospital emergency room or perhaps a university campus infirmary. That person needs to be monitored every single second until they have sufficiently awakened to be in control of their faculties, able to protect their airway, and so forth. If you don't do that, they're in danger of swallowing or choking on their secretions and dying.
Acute alcohol intoxication is a serious medical condition that can't be treated with strong coffee and hot showers.
Coffee is not going to wake them up. All it may do is burn their throat, and some of it may end up in their lungs instead of their stomach. Same thing for a shower. There's nothing that speeds up the metabolism of alcohol. It's simply a question of time. And somebody who's severely drunk is going to take, at the minimum, 2 or 3 or 4 hours before they're sufficiently sober that they're out of the danger zone. And that has to be done in a medical environment.
Katie was lucky. The doctors and nurses got to her on time. When she wakes up, she'll have a terrible hangover, or she may even still be drunk. Hopefully, she'll have learned a very valuable lesson, the hard way.
The feeling of waking up not knowing where you are with tubes in your arms and your nose is probably the scariest feeling in the world. I was so lucky. Everyone around me helped me so much and saw the danger and tried to get me back to the hospital. I read this article about drinking, and word for word I could relate with some of the stories.
Could have been me. Could have been one of my friends.
You could die from it. You can get alcohol poisoning. I mean, that's dangerous.
It doesn't take that much more alcohol to die like those kids did than what I drank.
I don't want to have to lose someone for something as stupid as alcohol.
Hopefully it's a wake-up call to other people and to other friends of kids who get drunk like that.
A final reminder. This much hard liquor can trigger alcohol poisoning and death. Don't let it happen to you or anyone you know. Don't become another alcohol poisoning statistic.